Ethan Frome, Chapter 4, Extract. Read by Andrea Dean Van Scoy. As soon as his wife Zena had driven off, Ethan took his coat and cap from the peg. Maddie was washing up the dishes, humming one of the dance tunes of the night before. He said, "So long, Matt," and she answered gaily, "So long, Ethan." And that was all. It was warm and bright in the kitchen. The sun slanted through the south window on the girl's moving figure, on the cat dozing in a chair, and on the geraniums brought in from the doorway, where Ethan had planted them in the summer to make a garden for Maddie. He would have liked to linger on, watching her tidy up, and then settle down to her sewing. But he wanted still more to get the hauling done and be back at the farm before night. All the way down to the village he continued to think of his return to Maddie. The kitchen was a poor place, not spruce and shining as his mother had kept it in his boyhood. But it was surprising what a home-like look the mere fact of Zena's absence gave it. And he pictured what it would be like that evening when he and Maddie were there after supper. For the first time, they would be alone together indoors. And they would sit there, one on each side of the stove like a married couple. He in his stocking feet and smoking his pipe. She laughing and talking in that funny way she had, which was always as new to him as if he had never heard her before. The sweetness of the picture, and the relief of knowing that his fears of trouble with Zena were unfounded, sent up his spirits with a rush, and he, who was usually so silent, whistled and sang aloud as he drove through the snowy fields. There was in him a slumbering spark of sociability, which the long Starkfield winters had not yet extinguished. By nature, grave and inarticulate, he admired recklessness and gaiety in others, and was warmed to the marrow by friendly human intercourse. At Worcester, though he had the name of keeping to himself and not being much of a hand at a good time, he had secretly glorified in being clapped on the back and hailed as Old F or Old Stiff. And the cessation of such familiarities had increased the chill of his return to Starkfield. There, the silence had deepened about him year by year. Left alone, after his father's accident to carry the burden of farm and mill, he had had no time for convivial loiterings in the village. And when his mother fell ill, the loneliness of the house grew more oppressive than that of the fields. His mother had been a talker in her day, but after her trouble, the sound of her voice was seldom heard, though she had not lost the power of speech. Sometimes, in the long winter evenings, when in desperation her son asked her why she didn't say something, she would lift a finger and answer, "Because I'm listening." And on stormy nights, when the loud wind was about the house, she would complain if he spoke to her. They're talking so out there that I can't hear you. It was only when she drew toward her last illness, and his cousin, Zenobia Pierce, came over from the next valley to help him nurse her, that human speech was heard again in the house. After the mortal silence of his long imprisonment, Zena's volubility was music to his ears. He felt that he might have gone like his mother if the sound of a new voice had not come to steady him. Zena seemed to understand his case at a glance. She laughed at him for not knowing the simplest sickbed duties and told him to go right along out and leave her to see to things. The mere fact of obeying her orders, of feeling free to go about his business again and talk with other men, restored his shaken balance and magnified his sense of what he owed her. Her efficiency shamed and dazzled him. She seemed to possess by instinct all the household wisdom that his long apprenticeship had not instilled in him. When the end came, it was she who had to tell him to hitch up and go for the undertaker. And she thought it funny that he had not settled beforehand. Who was to have his mother's clothes and sewing machine? After the funeral, when he saw her preparing to go away, he was seized with an unreasoning dread of being left alone on the farm. And before he knew what he was doing, he had asked her to stay there with him. He had often thought since that it would not have happened if his mother had died in spring instead of winter. When they married, it was agreed that, as soon as he could straighten out the difficulties resulting from Mrs. Frome's long illness, they would sell the farm and sawmill and try their luck in a large town. Ethan's love of nature did not take the form of a taste for agriculture. He had always wanted to be an engineer and to live in towns where there were lectures and big libraries and fellows doing things. A slight engineering job in Florida, put in his way during his period of study at Worcester, increased his faith in his ability, as well as his eagerness to see the world. And he felt sure that, with a smart wife like Zena, it would not be long before he had made himself a place in it.